There are places in the United States where the dark doesn't just mean the absence of light. It means something else entirely, something older, something that has been walking the same streets and breathing the same air for longer than anyone alive can remember. Alabama is one of those places, and it has two stories I need to tell you. In the southeast corner of the state, there's a small town called Abbeville. Population just over 2,000. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where porches creak in the evening heat and children play outside until the last light fades from the sky. But in Abbeville, there's a reason the children come home before dark, and it's not because their parents told them to. It's because of Huggin Molly. The legend goes back generations, long before streetlights, long before electricity lit the roads. Huggin Molly is said to be a woman, 7 feet tall, maybe 8, as big around as a bale of cotton, dressed in black, a long dark cloak, or a tattered dress, a wide brim hat, sometimes carrying a parasol. Her hair is long and black and hides her face. She walks the streets of Abbeville at night, and if she finds a child out after dark, she chases them down, wraps them in her arms, and screams directly into their ear. That's it. She doesn't hurt them. She doesn't take them. She just holds them and screams. Every kid who grew up in Abbeville knows this story. A local named Jimmy Rain once said, "Anybody who grew up in Abbeville grew up knowing the legend of Huggin Molly. If your mother or dad didn't want you to be out after dark, they'll tell you Huggin Molly would get you, and you believed it too." The origins of who Molly actually was depend on who's telling the story. In some versions, she was a mother who lost her child and went mad with grief, wandering the streets at night, searching, grabbing any child she could find to fill the emptiness. In others, she was a woman, murdered on those very streets after dark, and now she haunts them, trying to warn others. In another version, she was a professor at the Alabama Agricultural School who simply wanted to keep her students safe by getting them off the streets at night. Nobody knows which version is true. Maybe none of them. Maybe all of them are. What I find interesting about Huggin Molly isn't the ghost, it's the function. She kept children safe. She kept them home. She gave an entire town a shared story that every generation passes down to the next. Huggin Molly didn't need to be real to be effective. She just needed to be believed. There's even a restaurant named after her now. Huggin Molly's, frozen in the 1950s, right in the center of the town. The legend isn't something Abbeville hides from, it's something they built around. She belongs to them, but not everything in Alabama that walks in the dark is that generous. Now, Birmingham. Sloss Furnaces opened in 1882. For nearly a century, it turned raw ore into pig iron, producing 400 tons a day at its peak. It was the engine of Birmingham's economy. They called the city the Magic City because of how fast it grew. People came from everywhere looking for opportunity. What they found instead was a furnace that reached 150 degrees in the summer, 12-hour shifts with almost no breaks, hazardous air thick enough to choke on, conditions so dangerous that several hundred men died working over the decades. Colored men and white men worked side by side, separated by different time clocks and bathing houses, but united by the heat and the danger. In 1887, a 28-year-old assistant foundryman named Theophilus Calvin Jowers was helping replace a massive melting bell at the nearby Alice furnace. The rope slipped from his grasp. He lost his balance and he fell directly into the pool of molten iron below. He died instantly. Workers rushed to recover what they could find from the searing heat, pulling out only a few charred remains and ash. In the years that followed, Alice Furnace was eventually dismantled, and its workers were moved to Sloss. They claimed Jowers didn't leave. They reported an unnatural chill on the high catwalks, the distant feeling of someone standing right behind you in the dark, watching. His spirit had migrated with the iron. And then there was the legend of Slag. James Robert Wormwood, known as Slag, was said to be the foreman of the graveyard shift in the early 1900s. He was cruel. He pushed workers into taking dangerous risks to impress the men above him. He didn't allow breaks. He didn't allow rest. And during his time in charge, 47 men reportedly lost their lives. In 1906, the story goes, Slag lost his footing at the top of the highest blast furnace, Big Alice, and fell into the pool of melted iron below. Some say it was an accident, some say the workers pushed him, an act of vengeance for years of suffering. After his death, something changed at Sloss. In 1926, a night watchman was shoved from behind and heard a voice tell him to get back to work. In 1947, 3 supervisors were found unconscious in the boiler room. All 3 claimed a man covered in severe burns had approached them and told them to keep working. In 1971, a watchman named Samuel Blumenthal described coming face to face with something he called half man, half demon. It tried to force him up the stairs. When he refused, it beat him. He was examined by doctors who found intense burns on his body. He never returned to work. Now, here's what makes Sloss truly unsettling. The story of Slag has been disputed. Some historians believe the character of James Wormwood was invented, a legend built on top of a real tragedy to give a haunted attraction a villain. But Theophilus Jowers was real. His death was documented, and the reports of something still walking those catwalks, those same from real workers, real watchmen, real people who had no reason to lie. Sloss Furnace closed in 1971. It was saved from demolition and turned into a museum. It's now a National Historic Landmark. Thousands of people visit every year for concert, art shows, tours. But when the crowds leave and the sun goes down, some visitors say the furnace still breathes. That the metal still creaks with footsteps that don't belong to anyone living. That if you listen carefully near the top of the old blast furnace, you can hear someone whispering the same thing they've been whispering for over a century. Get back to work. Alabama is the first state, the first episode, and we're just getting started.